Hello, welcome to my PowerPoint. I would like to introduce you to Indie Insider, the monthly indie rock music magazine based on indie rock artists in North London. The name. The name was decided and is composed of two words. Indie, which insinuates that it is an indie rock magazine, and insider, which connotes to the readers that they're getting inside information that they would get nowhere else, including the magazine's rivals, such as Wired. The font decided was Kevlar underwear on the popular font website, The Font. It was decided, as you can tell, it is bold, so obviously it would stand out to the reader. Also, due to the serifs, it connotes that it is based on a genre that is, that was most popular in the past, specifically the 90s and early 2000s. Apologies for this. What is the purpose of the magazine? The purpose of the magazine is to hopefully get the indie rock genre up to its reputation that it used to have. It would also, the main purpose, of course, is to have financial success, so it can further expand, hopefully from North London to all of London, and eventually globally, as most indie magazines operate on. Form of the magazine. There would be a digital form of the magazine which would be available on the Apple Store, Google Play Store, and the Kindle Store. As well as this, there would be a physical issue of the magazine which would be available in most bookstores, as you can tell. Content of the magazine. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, we are having some technical difficulties. This was supposed to say Q&A, which would happen with the featured artists of the magazine, which originally would be indie rock artists from the north of London. It would also have upcoming albums and music and upcoming albums and shows that would happen at indie rock venues. So the formula would not be completely like indie rock magazines such as Pitchfork, which mainly focus on the past of indie rock. Mine would, by focusing on well-known musicians, mine would be focusing on the future, by focusing on upcoming musicians. As well as this, my magazine will originally be based in North London, as there is no other magazine based on indie rock that matches all these criteria. Target audience of the magazine. The target audience would be males from North London aged 25 to 35. They would be from social grade C1 to A. As well as this, they would listen to indie rock, and the age was decided as these people would most likely be adolescent at the time where indie rock was most prominent, which was the 90s and 2000s. Oh yeah, this is what I need in order to get my magazine running. Yes, the material possessions. So I would need Apple Mac computer, Photoshop, a DSLR camera, a tripod, a lens, a memory card, and a video camera. The Apple Mac computer would be used for editing. Would be used for editing the magazine and for writing everything all the content that would be inside. Photoshop would be for editing photos so that they look more professional. The camera would be for taking the photos, which would be taken by a professional photographer. The tripod would be used for both the DSLR camera and the video camera. The DSLR camera to ensure that the photos would be as still as possible, and for the video camera for the same purpose. The lens would be for the photographer to have a choice in a distance between himself and the object of what he's photographing for the magazine. The memory card is so that they can upload their photographs onto the Apple Mac computer so they could use Photoshop. The video camera would be used so that they could film interviews with featured artists. This would allow them to copy what they are using and to stop human error that the interviewer may have by writing it down. This here is a spare battery camera so that the photographer could spend more time photographing their photographs. Personnel. We would have a cameraman, a Photoshop editor, an interviewer so that they could interview the artists for my magazine, an indie album reviewer for the content of the magazine, and an editor to make sure that everything in the magazine is safe for consumption of the normal reader. Distribution and marketing methods. In order to use the budget efficiently, we would need to target our primary audience for buying it, which would most likely be males from ages of 25 to 35. The physical copies of the magazines would most likely be advertised at indie rock concerts. However, the digital copies of the magazine would be available on the App Store, Google Play Store, and Kindle Store, as I already said. The digital copies of the magazine would be advertised on Facebook. This is because the majority of the target audience would be on Facebook, and also because, also because Facebook has a marketing technique saying that they would know that they would be interested in genres such as indie rock, so that they would advertise specifically to them for my magazine. The reason why we would be mainly advertising the digital copy of my magazine on Facebook is because I would assume that the users who are on Facebook would be more technologically savvy than those as for some of the readers may be off the grid and would prefer to have a physical copy. The reason why we are not using social media platforms such as Instagram and Snapchat is because they are mainly aimed at a much younger demographic. Potential drafts for the cover of my double-page spread of my magazine. And for the cover. This here is the double-page spread, and this is the cover. Here are the digital copies of what could potentially be shown. Yes, as you can tell, the color scheme for this has been heavily influenced by albums and by other indie rock magazines' color schemes. Any questions?
I have one.
Yes, you should.
You said you're going to provide an extra battery pack for the DSLR camera, so the photographer can spend more time taking pictures, but wouldn't that cost you more for the photographer, like to hire the photographer?
No, he would be on our payroll, so we wouldn't be hiring.
Is it like an hourly rate or like a fixed monthly salary?
It would be fixed.
Oh.
Any other? Yes. Oh,
sorry. You go on. With the personnel, just picking up on Daniel's point, is there any way that you could potentially save money on personnel? Because it seems like you're going to be plunged into debt to start with.
Well, as most businesses are, most businesses are plunged into debt for usually the first 2 years. But for the first issue of the magazine, I would be doing all of the duties of personnel, and afterwards we would usually be using personnel that are interns, as they are usually very cheap to have. Also, they gain experience, and the majority of the interns that we hire, if not all of them, would have prior experience to doing it.
Are you going to have any advertising, such as posters or?
Yes, posters would be at indie rock venues, mainly because we want to use the budget efficiently, and we wouldn't want to use it in places such as, I don't know, bus stops or on buses, because I don't know, buses go from areas of North London down to others. So most likely people in other areas of London would not want to read a magazine exclusively based in North London. And also because, we just want to use it efficiently. So.
What's your USP? Like, what separates your indie rock magazine from any other indie rock magazine?
As I previously mentioned, Sam, my indie rock magazine would be the only one operating in North London and exclusively in North London. Of course, when it eventually expands, it would have a smaller user selling point, if any, as there would be in other competitions such as Wired or Pitchfork, but it would still focus not mainly, but a lot of its resources on North London up and coming indie rock artists.
It seems a little bit contradictory that you've got your USP is based in North London, and you're talking about expanding it, and you've already said that people in the south of London wouldn't be interested in reading about stuff
Exactly,
in
but
North
of course
London.
it would slowly expand to London and eventually Britain, and then Europe, and of course until globally.
So then when you expand, what's your USP?
My USP,
Because your USP right now is where it's located, but if you expand it beyond where it's located, then what is your USP?
well, of course, magazines that have been doing this and reporting for longer have focused mainly on already well-established musicians, on indie rock musicians. However, mine would will mainly be based on up-and-coming musicians, as they are easier to get interviews with, and it would be good if you are one of the first people, if you were one of the first magazines to interview a band that eventually becomes big.
I'm a little bit concerned about your target audience for this. Now, in the brief, you were asked to produce a magazine that's for a vibrant music scene in London, and I'd be a bit hard pushed to describe age 25 to 35-year-olds as vibrant with the indie rock genre as well. I don't necessarily think that's a vibrant music scene, and I'm not sure that people who have your idea that people grew up listening to indie rock in the 90s. I don't know, are they going to be interested in upcoming artists? I thought they'd be more interested in what's happened to bands from the 90s.
Well, sir, which part would you like me to answer first, sir?
Okay, let's start with the target audience, 25 to 35 years.
Yes. As you may well know, the majority of avid music listeners do listen to music in their adolescence. So you would assume people who listened a lot to the indie rock genre in their adolescence would grow up continuing to listen, and the reason why we're mainly focusing on up-and-coming indie musicians is they may want to know what will happen in the future. The vibrant music scene you asked about?
Yep.
One of the main goals of the magazine One of the main goals of the magazine is to make the indie rock music scene in North London, bigger. That's one of our more short-term goals, so that we could have more funding to expand.
You talk about wanting to make the indie rock scene bigger, but isn't there a reason it kind of died out? I don't think it's relevant anymore. Well,
one of the main reasons it died out is because a lot of the indie rock bands were receiving solo contracts just for their band, continued, and they became themselves more mainstream, which kind of destroyed the entire idea of indie rock, or not the entire idea, or some of the reasons that a lot of the listeners did listen to indie rock, that they sort of had something that no one else did.
Okay, so does it still exist as a genre, particularly with are there lots of upcoming bands for indie rock?
Yes, there are.
Yeah, and lots in North London.
Yes, but unfortunately, not a lot are well established. So although that does mean that there aren't a lot of current listeners, it does mean that the genre is more niche, so that people do have more of a reason to listen to it.
Okay. Do you envisage any kind of secondary audience for your magazine? You talked about the primary audience, 25 to 35-year-olds. I'm sure there must be some sort of scope for a secondary audience.
Yes, my secondary audience would mainly be aimed at the entire audience, majority of 15 to 25-year-olds. I didn't want to make the gap so big, 15 to 35. I would say that age because they are adolescents, so they would be listening to a lot of indie rock. Also, quite a few up-and-coming bands do have younger players who are roughly that age. So you would assume that people that age would want to see their people similar in age performing. and hopefully expanding.
Okay, is there any more questions just for the time being? I do have a couple more. One of them is on marketing. So you said that you're going to market it. You covered the digital side of marketing quite well.
Yes.
As far as the actual magazine is concerned with non-digital advertising, you've talked about putting posters up at indie rock concerts. Are there any other ideas you've got for that?
No, my magazine would mainly be focused on digital copies because I'm well aware that that there isn't such a need to continue into the paper business, as the majority of people are wanting to are wanting to read digitally, as it's more convenient. Also, it's better for the environment. A lot more households are becoming paperless.
Okay. Have you got a pricing structure for your magazine, per issue, subscription?
Yes. Subscription annually. It is £5 per issue, and it comes monthly. So if you were to buy it straight up, it would be 60. If you have a subscription, it would be £50 for the entire year.
Okay. And what am I getting for my money? Sort of how many pages is it going to run to? Is it going to be filled with advertisements, or is it going to be really kind of meaty articles in there?
Originally, it would not be filled with advertisements, as there wouldn't be a lot of awareness for the magazine. As advertisements in the magazine grow, I believe that there would be a higher amount of pages for the magazine. Originally, it's going to be 150 pages for the first issue.
That's quite long.
Yeah, I understand, but it does come out monthly.
Yeah.
So a weekly magazine it wouldn't be 30 pages; it would be longer. So if anything, it's shorter than it should be.
Okay.
You just mentioned the price for the subscription, but is the app going to be free or?
Oh, no. Digitally it would be cheaper, as we wouldn't have to cover costs such as printing and for distribution. However, I am aware that percentages from Google Play Store, Kindle, and Apple are taken, so it wouldn't be like £1 per issue. It would be, I don't know, £3.
Okay, thank you very much, Max.